Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories. Please like and subscribe, and hit that notification icon so you never miss out. Now on with the stories.
Poodle has the blues. I live in a pretty nice neighborhood with very few exceptions. See my other story, It's Whom You Know. The biggest exceptions were people who let their dogs run loose and wild, between the scattered trash, the random dog feces on our lawns, and the seemingly lackadaisical attitude displayed by animal control personnel. I, for one, was ready to take matters into my own hands. I couldn't believe how inconsiderate some of my neighbors were. I mean, it's not that hard to keep your dog on a leash or, at the very least, confined to your own yard. Every morning I'd find my trash bins tipped over, their contents strewed across my driveway, and my lawn dotted with dog poop. It was driving me crazy. And to make matters worse, animal control didn't seem to care. I'd called them numerous times, but they never did anything about it. It was like talking to a brick wall. So, after much frustration and a few late-night brainstorming sessions, I decided to set up one of those live trap cages. I hid it behind my fence near the trash bins, thinking it would be the perfect spot. It wasn't baited, so I didn't really expect to catch anything. It was more of a statement, a way to say, "I'm watching you," to the irresponsible dog owners. But to my surprise, one morning I found a large white curly-haired dog with a classic poodle cut caught in the trap. It had no collar or tag, darn it. I covered the cage and loaded it into my truck. Then I drove out to a friend's place in the country. My friend Dave lives on a sprawling farm, and he's always up for some mischief. We shaved off all of the dog's fur and then dunked it in a trough of indelible blue dye. It was quite the transformation. This once regal-looking poodle now looked like something out of a Dr. Seuss book. For the next few days we fed it, watered it, walked it, and checked it regularly for any adverse reactions to the dye. It seemed to be doing just fine. In fact, the dog seemed to enjoy the extra attention. It was wagging its tail and bouncing around, completely oblivious to its new Smurf-like appearance. Seeing no harmful effects, I decided it was time to return it to the neighborhood. I drove it back and released it about a block from my home. As I was heading back to my place, I noticed some lost dog posters on the lampposts. The picture of the lost dog looked very familiar. It was definitely the same poodle, pre-makeover. The owners put up some reward posters, asking for information leading to the arrest and conviction of whoever committed an unspecified assault against their family pet. They also, apparently, kept their dog confined to their own backyard from then on. As did many others in the neighborhood. It seemed my little stunt had sent a clear message, and for the first time in a long time, no one on my street had to pick up any loose trash or dog droppings. This has lasted for several weeks. It was a small victory, but it felt good. The neighborhood was cleaner, quieter, and oddly enough more respectful. People seemed to take better care of their pets and their property. Edit, for all you self-righteous virtue signalers who have accused me of endangering the dog's life. We patch-tested the dye on ourselves first, then on the dog, then performed the clip and dip. This was much more humane than what my neighbors had planned, most of which included electrocution, poisoning, the firing of projectiles, and deliberately running over any dogs wandering on the street. The dog in question seemed to enjoy the entire episode and displayed no harmful after effects. Now get off my back. I understand that what I did might seem extreme to some people, but you have to understand the situation. My neighbors were talking about some pretty harsh methods to deal with the stray dogs. Compared to that, a blue dye job seems pretty harmless. And let's not forget, the dog was fine. It wasn't hurt or traumatized. If anything, it got a little vacation out of the deal. So while I don't necessarily recommend my approach to everyone, it worked for me. The neighborhood is cleaner. The dogs are contained, and everyone seems to be a bit more considerate. Sometimes you have to take matters into your own hands to get results. Nothing worse than the people in big shared complexes who just absolutely refuse to do the bare minimum to pick up after their dogs and let them run rampant, like they have a closed-in yard instead of a shared space. The fact that you effectively scared every one of those owners into doing so is amazing, and I'm glad you were able to do it in such a humane way. My hat's off to you. It's Whom You Know. I've always been the kind of person who believes in the motto, live and let live. I mean, why stir the pot if there's no real harm being done, right? This philosophy was put to the test when my neighbor decided to build a covered and semi-enclosed patio kitchen, using our shared back fence, which was made of cinder blocks, as part of its structure. This wasn't just any patio. It was fully plumbed and wired, equipped with the usual kitchen appliances, an expensive sound system, and even a fancy-looking faux crystal chandelier. At first, I chose to ignore it. The structure didn't cause any physical harm to anyone, and it was concealed from my sight by the tall shrubs on my side of the fence. I figured, out of sight, out of mind. What I didn't realize was that this neighbor would soon turn my peaceful existence upside down. One sunny afternoon, my neighbor accused me of throwing dog feces into his pool. Now here's the kicker. I didn't even own a dog at the time, and my backyard was fully fenced in, making it impossible for any dog to access it. I tried to reason with him, explaining that it couldn't have been me, but he wasn't having any of it. He was convinced that I was the culprit. As if that wasn't bad enough, he took it a step further. He started encouraging his party guests to throw their empty beer cans and other trash into my backyard as some twisted form of retaliation. When I confronted him and asked him to stop, he just laughed in my face. Calling the cops was out of the question because, as it turned out, he was a cop himself. Feeling helpless and frustrated, I decided to seek help from a friend who happened to be the city's director of code enforcement. After explaining the situation, my friend agreed to take a look at the structure. Sure enough, he found several code violations and discovered that no building permits had ever been issued for the patio kitchen. Armed with this information, my friend issued violation notices, a hefty fine, and an order for the neighbor to completely remove the illegal structure or face even bigger fines. To ensure there'd be no favoritism, the report was sent to the chief of police, who reviewed the evidence and refused to intervene on behalf of my neighbor. The law was the law, after all. Faced with the reality of losing his job if he didn't comply, my neighbor had no choice but to dismantle his beloved patio kitchen. He packed up all his fancy appliances and fixtures and stored them in a rented storage locker. Eventually, he decided to sell everything at auction just before he and his family moved away. The day he took down that structure was a small victory for me. It felt like justice had been served, and the neighborhood felt a little more peaceful without his antics. But the cherry on top, that fancy faux crystal chandelier that once hung in his illegal patio kitchen now hangs elegantly over my dining room table. It's a beautiful reminder that sometimes standing up for yourself and seeking the right help can turn a bad situation into a sweet victory. Life returned to normal after that, and I continued to embrace my live and let live philosophy. But now, I also understood the importance of not letting people walk all over you. Sometimes you have to stand your ground and fight back, even if it means getting a little creative with your approach. In the end, the experience taught me a valuable lesson about balance, justice, and the importance of good friends who have your back. Best of all, the cost was about 13 cents on the dollar. Petty revenge, best served torn down and auctioned. This was going to be my question. How cheap did you get it? But I see you have already answered it. 13 cents on the dollar. To rub salt into the wound, he knew it was you that bought it so cheap, and for the extra knife twist, I expect he suspects that it was you that happened to mention to the dose that the neighbor had done something worth looking into.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.